Let's get right into it. Today, we're taking a look at a fascinating new book from Dr. Reg Butterfield, and it takes aim at something you've probably seen 1,000 times, one of the most basic tools of the modern workplace, but maybe one of the most misleading.
You know the one. You walk into any office or log into any company portal, and there it is, the org chart. It's all these neat little boxes and clean straight lines. It promises us order, clarity, a sense of place. But what if that promise is basically a fantasy?
And boom, there it is, the book's opening line, a cartographic fallacy. What does that even mean? Well, simply put, it's a faulty map. It's a beautiful, simple, and completely misleading picture of how things actually work. And this one idea is what we're going to unpack today.
So what's the problem with a faulty map? Well, the book's core argument is this. We are using a static, two-dimensional map to try and navigate a living, breathing, three-dimensional system. You know? The territory, the actual organization, is constantly shifting, but our map, it just stays the same.
And this is the disconnect the book hammers home. The real work, the important stuff, it doesn't happen along those rigid, formal lines. Nope, it happens in these invisible, informal networks that just spring up to solve problems whenever the official system is too slow or too siloed. These are the real lifelines of any company.
So what happens when we keep relying on this broken map? Well, it's given birth to a massive industry that's built on fixing the symptoms instead of the actual cause. An industry that, according to Dr. Butterfield, is selling us all a very, very flawed story.
Get this, $1 trillion. That's the rough size of the leadership and culture change industry. Think about that. An entire industry built on this myth that you can just tell people to behave differently, send them to a few workshops, and poof, magically fix a fundamentally broken system.
And this slide just lays it out so perfectly, doesn't it? On the one hand, companies preach these wonderful values, collaboration, safety, innovation. But then you look at the actual architecture, and the metrics reward teams for competing against each other. The software tracks every single keystroke. It's this incredible conflict at the heart of so many organizations.
And this is the big takeaway. This is so crucial. You can't just slap new values onto a system that is literally designed to produce the opposite behaviors. It'll never stick. You have to change the architecture, the systems, the rules, the structures, and then the behavior you want will start to emerge on its own.
Okay, so if the old model of control is broken, what's the alternative? Well, the book proposes a really radical shift in our mindset. It's about moving away from trying to control every outcome and moving towards stewarding the conditions for success.
And this new way of thinking is built around something the book calls ETRNs. It's a bit of a mouthful, I know, but just think of these as the organization's true living nervous system. They're those impromptu teams and informal collaborations that actually figure out the complex problems, and they operate completely outside the lines of the formal org chart. And to lead in this new world, you need what's called architectural humility. It's not about being the boss with all the answers or drawing the perfect map. It's about paying quiet, patient attention to creating an environment where those powerful networks can actually thrive. It's less about designing the big process from up high and way more about asking, hey, what's one little obstacle I can remove from my team today?
Now, you might be wondering who this is for, and it's not just for the C-suite. Dr. Butterfield really lays out 4 key audiences: students who are just learning about how organizations work, managers who are stuck in the middle, executives trying to steer the whole ship, and honestly, pretty much anyone who's ever felt like modern work is just a little bit broken.
Now, it's super important to be clear about what this whole philosophy is not, because it's easy to hear all this and think it's just about causing chaos or getting rid of all rules. But that's not it at all. This is not a call to just burn all the org charts. They still have a purpose, for legal stuff. And it's not some utopian fantasy where everyone gets along and there's no conflict. And it is definitely not anti-structure. It's actually an argument for a more living structure, one that can adapt and absorb change instead of just fracturing under pressure.
So, how do you even start doing this? Well, the book argues it doesn't begin with some massive top-down transformation program. No. It begins with small, immediate, and really powerful acts of just paying attention.
The call to action is actually pretty simple. Find one spot where there's friction. See a cultural problem and ask yourself, what system is causing this? Then just make one tiny change. Maybe you protect 15 minutes for your team to just talk with no agenda, and then you just step back and watch what happens. It's evolution, not revolution. And this is really the single thread that ties the entire book together. The goal is not control. The goal is creating the right conditions. It's a shift from being an architect with a rigid blueprint to being a gardener who tends the soil, knowing that if the conditions are right, amazing things are just going to grow all on their own. And I guess the real question that leaves us with is, are we brave enough to stop drawing maps and maybe start tending the garden?